I'll be home soon. R.I.P. Keon. I love my family.
Assistant Prosecutor Mark Bartolotta, Travis County Assistant Prosecutor.
I'm not doing this in front of the stupid camera.
All right, Mr. O'Neal, please stop using.
This is TJ Lane, a 17-year-old high school student facing aggravated murder charges for opening fire at Chardon High School in Ohio, an incident which left 3 students dead and others critically injured. On February 27, 2012, Lane walked into the cafeteria at Chardon High School in Ohio and opened fire on his classmates. Within seconds, students were all over the place, scrambling for their lives. Panic spread through the school, with 911 lines lit up with terrified calls from students, teachers, and parents.
911, where's your emergency?
We just had a shooting at our school. We need to get out of here. Oh my
Okay,
God.
okay, ma'am, we got a school shooting. Ma'am, what school?
Chardon High School.
Chardon High School?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you see him shoot how many?
I saw him take out 2, and then I was gone. I was out of there.
Okay, were the students still alive?
I didn't know, ma'am. I didn't even check. I just got out of there as fast as I could.
Okay, who was the shooter?
His name is Thomas Lane.
TJ Lane was eventually chased out of the building by the school's assistant football coach, Frank Hall, and was arrested a short time later by the police without incident. But the damage had already been done.
Sitting in that room in shock, as we all comforted one another, I heard a police officer outside of the window say that they suspected TJ Lane. When those words hit me, I shook and cried and denied that all this could be true.
3 students lost their lives that day. 16-year-old Daniel Parmator, 17-year-old Russell King Jr., and 16-year-old Demetrius Hewlin, who later died at the hospital. Another victim, Nick Walsack, was left permanently paralyzed. All were students, and they all were Lane's classmates, and one of them had started dating TJ's ex-girlfriend very recently.
Scott, prosecutors have said publicly that TJ Lane chose his targets at random. But investigators tell CBS News that he knew his alleged victims well, and that one of the key factors that may have led to the shooting was that Lane's girlfriend had broken up with him the week before and started dating one of the boys he allegedly killed.
Prosecutors charged TJ Lane as an adult with 3 counts of aggravated murder. And as soon as the case began, disturbing pieces of Lane's life began to surface. Some of his friends described him as isolated and emotionally distant.
He's sitting there, by himself and everything. And, I feel like I failed as a friend because I should have, at least gone up to him and said, how was your day? How are you doing and everything?
Reports also revealed a deeply troubled home life, an abusive father with a prison record, and a mother who was rarely around. At first, Lane pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity, but after a court found him competent to stand trial, he pleaded guilty to all charges in an effort to avoid the death penalty.
Yeah, as to count 1, do you plead guilty to on or about February 27, 2012 at Chardon County, Ohio, purposefully and with prior calculation and design causing the death of Demetrius Hewlin, being aggravated murder?
Yes.
But the most horrifying moment wasn't the crime itself. It came later, in the courtroom. As grieving families prepared their victim impact statements for sentencing, Lane delivered a final performance of cruelty.
This is the case of the state of Ohio against Tom.
The white undershirt that had one word scribbled across it in black ink.
Thank you, Your Honor. To my left is Nicholas Burling.
And the same word that was on the shirt he wore the day of the shooting.
You feeling sick or ill or anything like that? No, just cold. Okay, we're gonna get you some dry clothes to change into, okay? All right.
Even after emotional statements from the families of the victims,
I will never get to see my baby brother graduate high school, go to college, graduate college, get married, have children. I will never be an aunt, and my children will never know their uncle.
TJ Lane had this in response to the victim's family.
Saying pull the trigger to kill your son, memory.
Some might dismiss TJ Lane's courtroom actions as a teenager seeking attention. But what happens when the defendant is a grown man who murders his wife, father-in-law, and still dares the court to execute him. This is Keith Ferguson, a 40-year-old man from Mecosta County, Michigan, who was facing charges of the murders of his estranged wife, Tiffany Ferguson, and father-in-law, James Weber. According to reports, it all began in November 2014 when Keith Ferguson showed up at the Cold Springs Township home of his estranged wife, Tiffany, and shot her dead right in front of their 4 children. But Ferguson wasn't finished, not even close. After killing his wife, Ferguson picked up his kids and loaded them in a car and drove them to their grandfather's house and father-in-law's house, Tiffany's father. There, he shot and killed the 63-year-old James Weber. The terrified and traumatized children somehow managed to escape. But the horror was far from being over. Keith fled the murder scene and forced his way into the home of a random woman, holding her hostage at gunpoint.
Our central dispatch received a phone call from the suspect telling us that he had taken a hostage and was in another location.
He barricaded himself inside, beginning a 7-hour standoff with police, a standoff filled with threats, negotiations, and demands.
He was willing to speak, and they had a dialect going. That he would get tired and tell the negotiators that he was going to hang up and call me back later, and so it went like that on and off all through the night.
Investigators would later confirm the motive. Tiffany had filed for divorce from him, and to him, her decision to leave him was a death sentence, not for himself, but for her and her father. At his arraignment, Ferguson showed no remorse. In fact, he showed he had nothing but contempt for the entire proceedings. He interrupted the judge severally and completely refused to follow court instructions.
Ferguson, can I get you to stand up there at the podium, please? All right, I need to have you raise your right hand for me. Okay, all right.
Just put me back in my cell.
Okay, stop.
When it came time to discuss bond, prosecutors asked for the maximum, pointing to the crimes Keith committed. But the judge didn't need much convincing.
We have two murders. We have issues of flight, home invasion, kidnapping. The defendant is facing life offenses. I think a high bond is warranted under the circumstances to assure the defendant's appearance in court. And I'm gonna set it as a $10 million bond.
But when it got to the proceedings, now that was when it all got worse. First, Keith initially agreed to plead guilty to the charges, but when it came to telling what happened in court, he refused.
Okay, well, I'm not getting into any detail of what happened.
If you want to be guilty, you have to say what you did.
I'm not saying all right? Because of the respect and the safety of my children, I'm not saying nothing, because they're going to see this. They don't need to hear that.
And when he eventually agreed to speak, what he said was downright horrifying.
And did you intend to kill him?
Oh, yeah.
And did you think about whether or not you wanted to kill him and make a deliberate choice to do so?
No, yeah. Put a half a magazine in that.
During sentencing, Tiffany's friend delivered a powerful and heartbreaking victim impact statement.
I was in fear, and I was so afraid for her. When I would tell her, I knew one day you would kill her, she would always reply, "He loves his kids too much. He won't kill me." Well, we see how much you love them.
When given a chance to speak, Ferguson didn't apologize. He even asked for the death penalty.
Just set me, kill me, and about the children. They've been through enough, and it would be good for me to, come on and see.
And before issuing the final sentence, Judge George Mertz had a few words of his own for Keith.
It may not meet the clinical definition of insanity, but there's clearly something fundamentally wrong with you. You're incapable of understanding that intentionally depriving an elderly woman of her husband, her mate for life, 4 children, and her mother, to satisfy your own selfish urges.
Ultimately, the court sentenced Keith Ferguson to life in prison without the possibility of parole for killing Tiffany Ferguson and 31 to 60 years for the murder of his father-in-law. As disturbing as Ferguson's contempt for the court was, he had nothing on this killer who not only did not show remorse, but also went ahead to represent himself in his own trial.
The evidence is going to show my son did not see me murder his mom.
So this is Ronnie O'Neal in court, facing multiple charges for the murders of his girlfriend and their 9-year-old disabled daughter. It was March 18th, 2018 in Riverview, Florida, and authorities were called to a scene so graphic, even seasoned officers struggled to process what they had seen. Inside the home, 33-year-old Ronnie O'Neal had left a trail of horror.
She made that call with fear in her voice.
He had shot and killed his girlfriend, Kenyatta Barron, with a shotgun. Then, he took a hatchet to their 9-year-old daughter, a child living with special needs, and ended her life. But that was not all. Ronnie also stabbed his 8-year-old son repeatedly, then set the house on fire, with the boy still inside. Somehow that boy survived and would go on to testify in court against the man who tried to end his life. Still, despite the overwhelming evidence, survivor testimony, and a clear path to a plea deal, Ronnie O'Neal had other plans. He chose to represent himself in his own murder trial.
The evidence is going to show my son did not see me murder his mom. The evidence is going to show he did not see me shoot his mom.
He stood before the court and delivered thunderous opening statements, shouting over objections and claiming he was the victim of a conspiracy by the police authorities.
And the evidence is going to show that law enforcement tampered with evidence.
And in a moment that left the courtroom stunned, Ronnie O'Neal chose to cross-examine the only survivor of that night, his own son, who he tried to kill.
Hurt you that night of this incident?
Yes.
I did. And how did I hurt you?
You stabbed me.
As the trial progressed, O'Neal's behavior unraveled even further. He grew louder and more aggressive.
And like I told you earlier, you will know the truth, whether in this trial or the next one. Better believe it. Because if you think I'm here to play around with y'all, God damn it, I'm not.
And when he faced the court, he repeatedly stated that he was not sorry for his actions that night.
I am not sorry for something I didn't do, and I am not sorry for the things I did do.
When it came to Impact's statement, Kenyatta Brown's sister had some words for him.
So when you sit in that cell for the rest of your life, remember, you don't leave out until you're in a box. So when you sit in that cell every day, 24 hours a day, that scream, I want you to hear it. When she comes to you in your dreams, I want you to receive it. You know why? Because that was a child of God.
In the end, the jury had no doubts despite Ronnie's theatrics. The evidence was undeniable, and the survivor testimony, though heartbreaking, was very clear. The verdict was quick, and Ronnie O'Neal was found guilty on all counts.
But I'm going to look you in the eye and tell you, this is the worst case ever in my life, and I have seen some horrors, but this is it. And I'm going to mete out the punishment that I think this case deserves.
On July 23, 2021, he was sentenced to 3 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole, plus an additional 90 years, a sentence that will outlive him 5 times over.
Let's count 1, Mr. O'Neal. I will adjudicate you guilty, sentence you to life in prison with a minimum mandatory of life in prison without the possibility of parole.
Ronnie O'Neal gave the courtroom a performance they would never, ever forget. But this defendant took it even further. She smiled in court while being charged with stabbing a 3-year-old boy to death.
Code section 2919.22B2.
This is Bianca Ellis, a 32-year-old woman facing a possible death sentence for the brutal murder of a toddler in North Olmsted, Ohio. The incident occurred on June 3, 2024. That morning, surveillance footage captured Ellis entering a thrift store where she stole a kitchen knife, and then she walked next door into a Giant Eagle grocery store. Inside the store, Ellis spotted 3-year-old Julian Wood sitting in a shopping cart being pushed by his mother, Margot. Footage shows her walking past registers, knife in hand, as she locked eyes with her unsuspecting targets. And then, she began to follow both mother and son out of the store, walking slowly behind them. Moments later, she followed them out into the parking lot, and that's where she attacked.
The attack happened Monday in the parking lot of a grocery store, the Giant Eagle there, that happened in the city of North Olmsted. That's about 25 minutes from Cleveland. The boy and his mother were stabbed and taken to the hospital.
Witnesses to the attack immediately called 911 while Bianca fled the scene of the attack.
There was a child. He's bleeding all over the place. We're at North Olmsted Giant Eagle. I don't know what happened to him.
The 3-year-old boy, Julian, and his mother were quickly rushed to the hospital. Although severely injured, survived. But Julian didn't make it. The little boy succumbed to his wounds, despite frantic efforts from the doctors to save his life.
The medical examiner confirming 3-year-old Julian Wood has died of his injuries at a local hospital. We're still working to learn how his mother is doing.
The search for Ellis began, and just minutes later, police authorities found her lying face down on the road, just blocks from the scene of the incident, with the knife still gripped in her hand. She was immediately arrested and charged with 10 felonies, including aggravated murder, attempted murder, and felonious assault. In a virtual pre-trial hearing, Ellis remained defiant and uncooperative.
Have you received and read your indictment? Yes or no? If you haven't received it, I'm going to send it over there. So you need to tell me that. Miss Ellis, why don't you want to answer these questions?
And when she appeared before the court in person, things got even worse. And as the judge read aloud the charges for murdering the 3-year-old child, Ellis could be seen, smiling at the camera, completely unbothered and even amused.
To wit, felonious assault, Ohio Revised Code Section 2903.11A1, and or endangering children in violation of Ohio Revised Code Section 2919.22B2.
That smirk hit a nerve in the courtroom, especially when Julian's father, Jared Wood, stepped forward to deliver a victim impact statement.
My name is Jared Wood, father of the deceased, husband of Margot. Your Honor, that day, 1 week ago, she took everything from us.
He pleaded with the judge.
Can to keep this monster behind bars.
The court ordered a full psychiatric evaluation to determine whether Bianca was competent to stand trial. In June 2025, Bianca was found competent, and she'll be going before court to face capital murder charges. And if convicted on the charges, possibly the death penalty. Bianca Ellis grinned while listening to the charges for murdering a toddler. But this defendant was so unremorseful in spite of his actions. His own father took the stand to testify against him in court.
He said he got back in the car and ran her over until she looked like spaghetti.
This is Wade Wilson, a 30-year-old man who was facing charges of first-degree murder on 2 counts and other crimes for leaving behind a trail of bodies in Cape Coral, Florida. The gruesome incident which left residents of Florida occurred on October 6, 2019, when Wilson met Christine Melton at a live music bar in Fort Myers. The 35-year-old woman had no way of knowing it would be the last night of her life. After their meeting, Wade and Christine returned to her home together. Wilson waited until Christine fell asleep, and then he attacked her, strangling and beating her to death. After she was dead, he stole her car and drove off. But Wade wasn't finished, not by any chance. He drove straight to his ex-girlfriend, Melissa Montanez, and there, without warning, he unleashed.
Bide my time at that point as quickly as help can get there, and
That's not working either. I'm starting to get punched and grabbed and choked and all kinds of things again.
Police were alerted, and when they arrived at the scene, they found Wade Wilson shirtless, outside in a vehicle. But he wasn't ready to surrender yet. He slipped past the officers and drove off again. This time,
just wait till my partner gets here. L41, gonna need a couple more units. Don't go anywhere. Hey.
victim. That victim would be 43-year-old Diane Ruiz. Diane, according to reports, genuinely thought Wade needed directions and tried to be helpful, but immediately she got into his car. He struck her unconscious, dragged her body out into the street, and then ran her over. Not once, not twice.
He said he got back in the car and ran her over until she looked like spaghetti.
After the murders, Wade called his father, Stephen Testa, and confessed to him what he had done in grotesque detail. That confession was so disturbing that Testa himself called the police on his own son and would later on take the stand to tell the court exactly.
So what did he tell you he did when he couldn't get her body into her own trunk?
He left her there and took her car.
Son had said, but the prosecution had.
I want to go back to that dinner time call. When he talked about these two people who were no longer with us and that he was a killer, did he show any type of remorse?
No, ma'am.
Questions for Stephen. Despite all these, Wilson showed no emotion in court. He even smiled silently as his own father.
As he's telling you all these things, what's his demeanor as he's telling you?
He was excited.
You say excited, what do you mean by that?
I felt like he was wanting me to feel the way he felt about it.
Did he seem proud of it?
Yes.
A monster. It took the jury just 90 minutes to come back with a verdict. Guilty on all counts. And then,
we, the jury, find by a vote of 9-3 that Wade Wilson should be sentenced to death.
The sentence. A death sentence in Wade Wilson.
Court of capital cases has led the court to conclude that the death penalty is not disproportionate in this case. Under the totality of the circumstances and evidence, the court finds no basis to override the jury's verdict. The totality of the circumstances warrants that the defendant, Wade Stephen Wilson, be sentenced to death for each count of first-degree murder.
Wade Wilson might have been unremorseful about his actions, but this defendant laughed during the court processes, while the mother of the boy he killed sobbed just feet away.
I sincerely hope that whatever it was you wanted so badly that you felt the need to murder my son was worth the next.
This is Danta Wright, a teenager who is facing charges of murder in a court in Michigan. Wright was only 17 years old when he and two others set out to rob 18-year-old Jordan Klee, a high school football player in Ann Arbor, Michigan. But what was planned as a robbery ended in murder, with Wright shooting Jordan in the back of the head during the attempted robbery. When brought before the court, the two other teens, Delreno Gracie and Jermarius Ellison, took plea deals, receiving 15 to 40 years behind bars. Wright himself also pleaded guilty to armed robbery, conspiracy to commit armed robbery, felony firearm, and second-degree murder, securing a plea deal that spared him from life in prison. But if the courtroom expected remorse in return, they got the exact opposite. During sentencing, the victim's family shared the devastation they've carried since losing Jordan. But while they spoke, while the mother wept too hard to even face the court, Danta Wright sat at the defense table, smiling and smirking.
I sincerely hope that whatever it was you wanted so badly that you felt the need to murder my son was worth the next at least 52 years of your continued existence. You won't get the luxury of raising your child because you took mine away.
And when it was his turn to address the court,
I just want to tell y'all, I'll be home soon, or I'll be Keon. I love my family.
That's all you got to say.
That was it. No apology, no remorse. Just a message to his friends and a smile that chilled everyone in the room. Even Judge David Schwartz, a man with over 2 decades of courtroom experience, was stunned at Wright's actions.
Never in 23 years approximately ever not accepted a sentence agreement between the parties because it's bargained for, sentenced by the parties. But watching you sit there, smile and laugh and shake your head like this was no big deal, I'm very tempted to just say, I'm not going to accept this sentence agreement. We'll go to trial. And if you're convicted of felony murder, you'll go to prison for the rest of your life. That means you'll die there. That's what I'm tempted to do.
The room went silent. All eyes turned to the prosecution. Should the plea deal be scrapped? Should they risk trial? In the end, Jordan Clee's family, though furious at the actions of the defendant, chose peace. They chose not to go all the way to trial and asked the court to honor the deal and give them a chance to begin their healing.
I have had a very lengthy discussion with the victim's mother as well as his grandparents and some family members. They understand that obviously this is the defendant who brutally murdered their son by shooting him in the back of the head. He's shown absolutely no remorse. However, the Clee family does want to move on with this. They want to get some closure from this case.
Wright's attorney, sensing the weight of the moment, decided to clean up some of the damage caused by his client's actions.
Your Honor, my client asked me to apologize to the court. His smiling was in no way meant as disrespectful either to the family, to the victim, or to this court. My client is 17 years old. He has some emotional problems and frankly was scared. And some people display fear by smiling.
But it was too late for damage control. The courtroom had already seen who Danta Wright really was. However, the judge, though reluctant, accepted the plea, and Danta Wright was sentenced to 25 to 52 years in prison for the murder of Jordan Clee. Outside the courtroom, Wright's mother spoke to the press, stating that his son's actions in court that day were as a result of some mental problems.
Do you think he took this lightly? Do you think he took this seriously? How do you think he...
I don't feel like he understands exactly what's going on because of his mental conditions, and